Today we're in San Diego, California, and we're visiting a place that's been around for over 200 years, since the time that this area was a territory of Spain, the Old Mission Dam. Hey everyone, welcome to Sidetrack Adventures. This is Steve. Right now I'm at Mission San Diego, which was the first mission established by the Spanish in California back in 1769. Though it wasn't actually established at this location, it was originally built about 7 miles west of here, but they moved the mission here in the 1770s. The reason they decided to move the mission is for a number of reasons. Number one, they wanted to get the natives away from the Spanish soldiers. They wanted access to easier farming land and to be a little bit closer to the San Diego River. Now, the San Diego River isn't all that reliable. It'll flood every so often and it'll dry up every so often. So in order to make it a little bit more reliable, after a drought in the early 1800s, the Spanish decided that they needed to build a dam. And that brings us to the subject of our video today, which is the Old Mission Dam, built over 200 years ago, and it's still there. It's about 5 miles from here, so let's head on over. Before we leave here, I wanted to point out that this mission is also the southern terminus of California's El Camino Real. The route is famous for the mission bell markers along the road, but you can also find those in places that aren't part of El Camino Real proper. The mission is also on La Playa Trail, which was a route that led from the ocean inland and already existed when the Spanish arrived here in the 1500s. But let's head up the San Diego River to the Old Mission Dam. We've moved upstream, and now we're at San Diego's Mission Trails Regional Park, and behind me is the Old Mission Dam, once known as the Padre Dam, and it's been here for over 200 years. So let's go take a look around. Mission San Diego de Acala was established by Father Junipero Serra in 1769. He went on to set up 8 more California missions before he died in Monterey, California in 1784. The mission moved to its current location in 1774, and despite initial resistance, by 1800 there were about 1,500 Christianized Native Americans living by the mission. Between 1800 and 1802, there was a major drought in the area, so the mission decided that this dam needed to be built in order to give a more stable water supply. Construction began in 1803, making this probably the first European irrigation project in what is now the west coast of the United States. The dam and irrigation system were finished in 1817. The dam wasn't really in use for too long. It fell into disuse by the 1830s, and by 1867 it was in ruins. It was repaired in the 1870s and put into use again for a few years, but by the 1890s it was no longer in use again, and newspapers were already referring to it as the Old Mission Dam. Despite being over 200 years old, the Mission Dam still impedes the flow of water on the San Diego River. You can see how much higher the water line is on this side versus the western side. Here's the water buildup behind the dam. You can see a part of the old flume system right here. When they built the dam, they also built a flume to deliver the water the 5 miles to the mission. It was lined with tile so that water wouldn't be lost into the sand along the way. Looking at the rocks here on the side of the river, you can see why this spot was chosen for the dam. Nature already did part of the work. Here's a look at the dam from the hill above it. On the weekends, this place gets pretty crowded, and you'll even see people fishing from the dam. But I have to say, it takes a braver man than me to eat fish from the San Diego River. While construction of the dam was directed by the mission, almost certainly everyone who actually built the dam was a native. The Kumeyaay people had lived in this area for countless generations, and to say they were treated poorly by the Spanish when they arrived would be a huge understatement. Less than 30 years before the construction of this dam began, the Kumeyaay revolted against the Spanish and actually burned down Mission San Diego. You can't tell the story of this dam without talking about who actually built it. Speaking of Native Americans, there's a place I want to check out about a mile downstream from here, where we can see a lot of evidence of their presence in the area pre-European contact. So let's head down there and check that out. This is probably my favorite place in the park, because it really feels like you step back in time when you head down here. There's no paved path, or railings, or overlook, or even any signs. It probably looks virtually the same as it would have 500 years ago. The trail we're on is only about 300 feet or so long off the main trail, but I think a lot of people just bypass it because when I come down here, I rarely see more than 1 or 2 people down here, usually no one. I could just imagine 300 years ago seeing native families down here with mothers using the grinding stones while the kids played in the water. I can't imagine this looks much different now than it did before the Spanish arrived. There are quite a few spots on the rocks where the Kumeyaay would grind acorns, seeds, roots, or whatever other edibles they would find in the area. Wow, this tree was going to grow here, boulder or not. We've moved over to the visitor center where you get this amazing view of the valley below. It's crazy to think that we're actually in the city of San Diego right now. I mean, we're within 15 minutes of multiple Walmarts. But anyways, that's our look at the Old Mission Dam. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.